I did not know this, but Russia apparently has its own Paris Hilton. Lucky them. Russia's Paris Hilton goes to fancy society parties and movie premieres, much like our own Paris Hilton. She's photographed all over the place by the Russian paparazzi. She's in the tabloids all the time. She is Russia's it girl, at least that's what Wikipedia tells me, and Wikipedia wouldn't lie to me, would it? Whose fame is derived from her father's political career. So far, so Paris Hilton-y. But Russia's Papa Hilton doesn't run hotels. He was the first democratically elected mayor of St. Petersburg and was friends with President Vladimir Putin back in the day. It's even rumored that Putin is the godfather to the Russian Paris Hilton, which is going to make creating the invite list to her next birthday party a little awkward. Russia's Paris Hilton, you see, has recently become Russia's Jane Fonda. She aligned herself this year with the anti-Putin opposition movement. She hosted opposition figures on her MTV show, which was then promptly canceled. She starred in a satirical video mocking Putin's control over the country. Russian authorities responded to her newfound activist streak by raiding her apartment yesterday. She says they confiscated her passport and a lot of cash. Guess they want to keep it safe for her. As part of a concerted effort, she says, to prevent the opposition movement from successfully organizing another anti-Putin protest today. It didn't work. Between 10 and 50,000 people showed up in the freezing rain to protest the Russian president. They marched through the bad weather and the cold. They mocked the government's efforts to stop them. They did this even though the Russian parliament recently passed a law fining anyone who damages property in the course of a protest. The fine is $9,000, more than the average Russian makes in a year. Also yesterday, before the planned march, a bunch of the opposition leaders were brought into police stations for questioning for something, totally unrelated to today's protest. Just happened to fall at the exact moment when they needed to prepare for the protest. It's very convenient that way in Russia. Opposition groups also promoted this video highlighting Vladimir Putin's wristwatch collection. Foreign Policy's Passport blog wrote about it. The watches are high-end, to say the least, according to the Moscow Times. Just one of them costs as much as $500,000, 5 times what the president officially makes in a year. I guess he's been saving up. Last year, the president was accused of letting Russian businessmen build this billion-dollar mansion for him. You can land not just one helicopter there, but 3, presumably 1 for the president and 2 for his watch collection. Right now, the U.S. Congress is considering whether or not to normalize trade relations with Russia. Doing so would make it cheaper for American companies to do business with Russian companies. If Congress doesn't normalize trade relations, Russia's crackdown on protesters and human rights abuses and general corruption will be a reason why. Its too close for comfort relationship with Syria will be another reason. Russia is one of the last friends the brutal Syrian regime has got. Human rights groups estimate Syria's Assad regime has killed at least 10,000 civilians in its 16-month-long violent assault on its own people. Today, the guy in charge of peacekeeping missions at the United Nations said definitively the conflict had turned into an actual civil war. Not just an uprising or protest movement or crackdown, but an actual civil war. The UN's annual report on kids in armed conflict was released today. It found that the Syrian regime has killed and tortured kids. It has also used them as human shields. Yesterday, the Syrian opposition said they took control, temporarily, of an important army base with the help of 22 sympathetic soldiers. Their claim cannot be independently verified by news organizations, but if true, that's what you would call a mutiny. Syria isn't just attacking its own people with artillery and mortar rounds and snipers. They're also reportedly using attack helicopters. Whose helicopters? Earlier today, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton accused Russia of sending a new round of gunships to Syria. It is unclear when they will arrive or if there's anything the United States can do to stop them. Joining us now is Josh Rogan, senior writer for Foreign Policy magazine and its must-read blog, The Cable. Josh, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Josh, Hillary Clinton's comments today came at a think tank. It wasn't a huge speech. It wasn't a big conflagration. Is this just sort of business as normal in our approach to Syria? Is this an escalation? Have we changed policy?
What Hillary Clinton's denote is a change in the U.S. policy from one of trying to persuade Russia to be a better actor in Syria to one of trying to apply more pressure on Russia to be a better actor in Syria. For months now, behind the scenes, the Obama administration has been pleading with Russia, trying to find areas of common agreement, common interest, trying to find a way that we can work on this together. A senior State Department official named Fred Hoff came back from Moscow yesterday. Apparently, the administration didn't like what they heard, and so they decided to ratchet up the pressure one more notch.
The State Department also warned today that Syria, the U.S. is paying attention, the international community is paying attention, and that war crimes, in theory, could be prosecuted in the future. Is this the type of threat that a regime like this, particularly a regime that is now seeing some mutiny potentially among its soldiers, would take seriously? Or is it the type of threat that causes them to try to double down and hold on to power all the more?
Well, half of them will take it seriously and half of them will double down and hold on to pressure. Well, we don't know, and that's what we're trying to find out by making these threats. I mean, a big part of the administration's strategy here is to peel off those members of the regime who don't want to be associated with this brutal massacre and to get them to turn on Assad. So threatening them with war crimes and after actions is one way to help encourage people to defect from Assad and the people closest to him.
This is somewhat reminiscent, this kind of escalation, this kind of circumstance of what happened before Libya, in which we shortly thereafter created a no-fly zone. Given Syria's penchant for using attack helicopters, is a no-fly zone a possibility here? Is that something people think could be a move downstream?
Right. So the first thing Obama administration officials will tell you is Syria is not Libya. It's more complicated, it's more diverse, but in a lot of ways it certainly looks like Libya. And much like with Libya, what we're seeing is a steady pace of administration increasing actions toward an intervention. And that pace keeps going even to this day. Now, the main reason that Syria is not Libya is that there is no international consensus on intervention that would be represented by a UN Security Council resolution. Of course, the reason there's no international consensus is because Russia is vetoing that resolution. So that's not going to change. So what we're looking towards is a mid-July deadline where the Annan plan will be up for review. We're going to declare it dead probably because it seems to be ineffective. At that point, the U.S. will have to decide whether to abandon the Security Council and pursue international intervention in Syria without Russia.
Josh Rogan of Foreign Policy's The Cable, a wonderful blog. Thank you very much.